Everybody else, I hope you have 10 o'clock as well. So let's do one sound check real quick to make sure you can all hear me before we get started. So if you can hear me okay, go ahead and click on the hand icon on your little dashboard. And boom, Connor was the first one that time. Okay. And if you can see a screen that says click, connect, convert, the craft of online conversion, go ahead and click the hand icon. Very cool. And that's it. It doesn't matter if you can actually see me on video or not. So awesome. Okay, so here we go. This is the Coldwell Banker Elite Click, Connect, Convert class, the craft of online conversion. I am your host, Matthew, and we are recording the session. So there is a place on your chat box for you to ask questions. It is on a second screen from the screen I'm using to present to. That means I'm going to turn every once in a while, and it looks like I'm texting or checking out a Netflix video or something. I'm not. I'm looking to see if you have comments. But I'm going to try not to be distracted by everyone. So if you have a question, throw it in the chat session or the question session. I'll be checking them throughout the session that we do and then answering them as we go along when there's a good time for a break. So don't worry about interrupting me. I'll do that all on my own. So this is one of my favorite classes, new classes I put together just a few months ago. This is the second or third time I've done it. First time for us. And I really felt that this was probably one of the most important marketing topics we could cover in the first quarter of the new year. And I'll go back a little bit. So I got licensed 2003 to, I think it's 2003. And my first year, I had a really good year. And I was with a small, no-name brokerage. There was 5 of us in the office at the time. And we had, no kidding, MLS was still dial-up, right? You had to have that whole little phone thing going on to get in. And I set up a web page, and quite frankly, my broker at the time, I'm talking on the phone going, I'm doing this stuff. I heard about these web pages that people have. And if you did a Google search 14 years ago in Fredericksburg real estate, 2 things came up. Me, usually at page like number 8 or 9 on the front page, or Caldwell Banker Elite had a company. And at the time I didn't work here. And that was my nemesis. I had to get higher than them on the page, and never did. And then all of a sudden it just blew up. Everybody in town had better pages and all these things. And it took a while to sustain. And eventually my attention went to coaching, mentoring, brokering, and I didn't really focus too much on it, but still had a pretty good handle on getting online leads and things. So I had this web page, and at the time, the Realtor Association said, "Hey, we're doing this session." And back then, training in the association wasn't a big deal. They had like 2 or 3 sessions a year. Most of them were pretty boring. There was no education committee or anything. It was like, the watershed impact on Virginia transportation that nobody cared about. So we did this panel, and there was 4 of us there. And the first person, and they're all still in the business, so I won't say names, but the first person was saying, "This is the flyer I do, and I get so much business by sending out just listed, just sold cards." And I'm at the end of the line. I'm going, okay. And the next person's talking about how newspaper, this is the newspaper ad that does the most business for me. And then the third person said, it was something else with paper. And they got to me, and I went, yeah, I don't personally have a lot of use for paper. Now, remember, I was in my 20s. I was about 25, I guess, 26 when I got into business, somewhere around there. And everybody else in the room was considerably more mature than I was. And, well, you always are more mature than I am, but they were a little older. And so I did my session, and as a speaker, and in my prior career, I did a lot of teaching. You could tell when you have an audience or not. And I could tell I had like 3 people out of the room of 25, 30. And I actually got up with a PowerPoint where everybody else just kind of showed their piece of paper. And I said, okay, here's the consumer. Here's how I handle them. I'm getting a lot of business, of course, through my sphere of influence, through church. And I used to be a paramedic, and I had emergency services contacts. And then I'm getting stuff out of the web page. And you could see people kind of brighten up a little bit. But they had already discounted me because the first broker I interviewed with in Fredericksburg said I was too young. I would never make it in the business. So this group was kind of in that same mindset. And from that day to this, I have taken every opportunity I can to share with anybody I can about the online consumer, but they've changed because back then it really was a much younger group. Now it's everybody. We know statistically that people start online and they make inquiries. for you and I to know who they are, how they work, and the tools and resources to change them from just an email to a client is really, really important to what we're doing. The sphere of influence marketing, which has been about 60% of most practitioners' business, is slowly eroding, right? Most of us are getting older. Our friends and family are buying their forever homes, and they're not looking to do a whole lot of moving anymore in the future. And people who, even if they know agents, may not want to work with somebody that they go to church with because of personal business or they've met them or whatever. So they go to the internet and they make inquiries, and they're not looking for an agent right off, but they're looking for information and resources. So this program is a program designed to kind of show you who that consumer is and what has worked for me and many, many others to get them to actually be long-term clients. So it's different than your sphere or your friends or people who even walk into a real estate office, but not tremendously so. Knowing where they are in their stages and who they are becomes a pretty critical component to what we do. So let's start section one, and this is knowing the consumer. So we start off with consumer personas. Now, Arlene, Colby, Angel, and I met with a company here locally who specializes in this type of stuff. And Colby Hurley paid them a little bit of money to go and do consumer surveys and meetings and build us personas. Who are the people that we are going to be engaging? What are their average age, family size, income, mentality? How do they do business? What do they like and dislike about real estate agents? And after this year-long process, we came to the conclusion halfway through this process, Coldwell Banker released an app called CBX. CBX it's for your Surface or your iPad or your Android tablet, not phones, but tablets. And strangely enough, or not so strangely enough, the consumer personas that this independent company we paid all this money to come up with, which was still great information, was very similar to the information that Coldwell Banker was giving us through the CBX app. And so we stand by these things. And here's what I want you to do. I want you to get out of, for this session, and for some homework I'm going to give you that's on your own, and I will share with you. Some of you are new to our company and on this webinar. You want to make a living in real estate and you want to do well, it requires hard work. There is no silver bullet. There is nothing that anyone's going to sell you, or no amount of money you're going to put into it, that is not going to overcome your amount of effort and engagement and taking responsibility for your own business. So what I want you to do is I want you at some point after the session, and you should be taking notes in Evernote or a piece of paper, and start off with the first task. The first task is write down who your consumers have been over the past couple of years. And you're probably going to find that the people you have worked with have been people similar to your age, similar interests, similar demographic information, income information, because that's typically been our sphere of influence, which has been the easiest group for agents to embrace and market to. But it's only about 40% of most territories' business, especially in Fredericksburg, where we have a very transient group. And people are not going to church like they used to. They don't get in civic organizations. Gen X and Gen Y especially, although they like to go out and socially drink, are not doing the whole, what we used to see in the realtor world even 10 years ago, was everybody getting together, getting drunk, and that's what we call networking. It's not the case anymore. A lot of people are much more family. They'll be at home in the evenings more often. They don't want to travel as far for work. It's a major shift to a more in my own house world, as opposed to going out and meeting everybody else, because they're meeting everybody else online. They're doing the Facebook for their social engagement, or FaceTime, or chat sessions, or emails, or groups, or text, or whatever. So start off with a list of who you've been working with, how they communicate, what they were looking for, and you're going to find that list of people you've worked with in the past few years are people like you for the most part. At least 60 to 70% will be. Then we're going to look at actually a persona of who we are truly working with in our marketplace, who we know statistically is working with us, and who is making inquiries online, and who buying and who's selling are a little bit different than most of our demographics for who we've now got to know over the years in our lives. And the reason I make that distinction is I want you to sit down, and once you start looking at the numbers we'll go through in just a minute, I want you to give them a name and a family. So you can see a picture of this beautiful family here. And we're going to say this is Julia and John and their kids, Jessica and James. And the J's, as we'll call them, are your new target audience. They're between 35 and 45. They have 2.5 to 3 children. Their income is about $90,000 combined, and both of them, of course, have to work because it's expensive to live here. And that means that little Jessica has to go to daycare, and little James is starting a new school, and they really, really, really like the public school system in the area. But if they could do a private school or Montessori school or Fredericksburg Academy, Fredericksburg Christian, they would try to do that as much as they could stretch the dollar. So they don't want to be in debt like they've seen other people. They've watched their friends get foreclosed on. And they want to work with somebody who gets them. They want to work with somebody who's going to give them time, especially in this demographic. So we look at Julia and John and go, I need to write my marketing content, my answers to my emails, my communication needs to be directed at their generation and their demographic, not my own. I can't talk to them like someone who's bought and sold 50 houses. I can't treat them as someone who's looking for their forever home. This needs to be the new target that I have. So each of you should take a couple minutes and actually give them, it works for me, give them names, imagine who they are, imagine where they work, imagine what they're looking for, and start thinking about that persona or that group of people when you do your marketing and content. If you don't know who that group is, or you want more of a third party type of ideology, and I'm looking at even our list. Okay, so it looks like we had a little break in the sound. All right. But it sounds like it's back. It looks like it's back now. Okay. Sorry about it. It's internet. Not sure what to tell you. Okay. So I don't know what you missed. So we'll just say that persona is going to be a profile that you write down, and you, even if you put it on a sticky note or something on your desk to say John and Julia and Jessica and James, that's my group. That's who I'm marketing to. That's who I'm talking to. And so when I get a blind email, I'm not just getting a blind email in which Connor. I'm not getting a blind email from some person I don't know. You can start to look at that email and go, "This is Jessica and James, or John rather, and or James rather," and I know exactly how to contact them, because an inquiry isn't just an inquiry. When I say, "Hey, can you tell me about the schools in this particular neighborhood?" They're looking for lifestyle information. If they're looking for schools, they assume they have school-age children. I need to communicate to them as mom and dad, and not just a number that was taken or a lead that is just making blind inquiries. If you'd like information, and I'm looking at our list here, and we have people who are in Colonial Beach. We have people who are in Lake of the Woods. We have people who are in Gainesville, and we have people who are down serving Caroline and Spotsylvania County. Those are very different demographics and different people. It starts with realtor property resource. So I am going to type in some links here for those who have not used this. And for those who have been with me for a while, you know, narrpr.com, and I put that in the chat session, is my number one go-to other than CBX for this. And I am a huge fan of narrpr.com. And I'm sorry, I know that you can hear Angel over me. We have open ceilings, don't know what to tell you. Okay, so we have the RPR report here that you can go run, even a zip code. But I would challenge you, even today, if you haven't already, go to the website, narrpr.com, log in, set up your profile if you haven't. Go down there to where it says neighborhoods and search for your neighborhood, your zip code, your area. All right, and get a report. So we're gonna do this too. I have a little mobile sound booth for my microphone. I'm gonna set up here to help out as it does my slides. All right, sorry about that, guys.
I don't know what that means. If you like, I can search the web for, I have a little mobile.
Okay, that's better. Okay, so again, you're going to use Realtor Property Resource to go look up your area and make sure you have a handle on who your clients are and what they're looking for and what they're doing. And RPR will tell you exactly that. The next tool, an even better tool, is only available to Coldwell Banker agents. This is CBX. You can go download it in the mobile app store on your devices. If you haven't gotten it already, and you should, this is one of the best tools that you can actually best tools that you can absolutely ever use in your presentations, especially for listings. Um, and we do a separate class for this, and there's videos and training, so I'm not going to spend time here going through it. But you can go pull up profiles, what's going on in your marketplace, and it'll give you the personas. It'll tell you the story of who they are, and they categorize them as soccer moms or professionals or whatever they are, and tell you exactly who your consumer is for that group and predict who your buyer is going to be. If you haven't used the tool, I would suggest your next few listings you use it. And what I found, I did 5 listing presentations, got 5 listings, 5 buyers. 4 out of the 5 buyers were exactly the demographic that was predicted through the CBX model. CBX takes data from a magnitude of different, or multiple rather, different resources, and creates a profile from LinkedIn and statistical data about consumers in the area and everything else. So it is well worth the time to use in your presentation. It is also a really good report you can email to a client. We'll talk about that a little bit later, who has inquiries or wants to buy or sell in your area. So this is what, for Fredericksburg, this is what the persona looks like. This is the majority of your clients are going to be about 32 years of age with high school, they're high school graduates. About 27% are going to have children, and those families are about 3.3 in size. So mom, dad, and 1.3 children. Their median commute time is 24 minutes. Now, some of you are freaking out and going, my clients drive all the way to Northern Virginia and it's 2.5 hours a day. I ran this for the downtown area, where a lot of people downtown either work, and you can see down here, it's the 22401 is the zip code. They either work in town or they don't work at all. So whatever reporting they've done, if they work from home, we have a lot of telecommuters, they've averaged that out. That's why it says 24 minutes. Okay, so that may be different when you go to Stafford or outside of the city proper. All right, the average income is 73,000. Remember, you have a ton of renters in Fredericksburg, so in the city, down Fall Hill and in other areas. So that does skew the numbers a little bit, but that still tells you who your folks are, what your consumers are. There's been a 15% increase in income over the past year, which is fantastic, and it's good information to know when you're talking to people, especially relocation folks. There have been 859 buyer inquiries in the last 14 days. That's 859 leads solely from Coldwell Banker Online and their resources. That's a lot of inquiries. And again, Angel does a CBX class, but any one of us on staff can help you out with this. Think about the 900 leads. If you're going for a listing and you're talking to a seller and you go, our company, because Coldwell Banker and Fredericksburg is now all one firm, our company alone, just off our webpage, got 900 or 859 leads for buyers looking for homes. We're the predominant lead source here. We're going to help you find a buyer. And then over in the right-hand side near the bottom corner, you'll see zip code profile. We'll talk about the different types of folks. 16% are people who are lifers who have been here forever. 14% are professionals in that generation, and 14% are Metro Fusion. And then CBX will tell you what each of those categories actually means when you click the little I button. So again, in CBX, it'll tell you the area and territory. If you look at the bottom, it gives you another summary. How do they digest media? How do they engage people? What's their commute time? What's their income? And this is actually for Stafford. And you can see they're about a year older on average in Stafford. They still have high school graduates as the majority of them. Much more, or many more homes with children, same family size, longer commute. Average household income is 112,000, and they've seen a 3% income increase over the year. And you need to look at these numbers later on, and if you need me to sit down with you, I can and explain why in the city there's been a higher increase in income than in the county. And I'll just give you the 2-second version. We went through a long period where people with high school degrees or no specialized training were having a hard time finding jobs, but in the past year and a half, they've been able to find jobs. So that pretty drastic increase has been for the highly dense rental community that we see in Fredericksburg in the city, again, down Fall Hill and over in Mayfield and some other areas, we've seen an increase in their getting jobs and in getting better paying jobs than they have before, which is why you see a much better increase than you do for college educated government workers in Stafford, where they haven't seen quite the income because they didn't get hit as hard through the job recession. All right. So, and it even goes down to tell you during the personas at the bottom, favorite TV format. Majority of people in Stafford prefer drama or reality TV. Go figure. Favorite radio format, talk or variety, news as opposed to music. These are, again, people who are listening to podcasts and those types of things. What website do they use most? What do they do online? And some of you are getting freaked out right now because Big Brother, it's Orwell's 1984. You know what? Everything you do is online. Just get used to it. That's the way of the world now. Not a lot you can do. The next thing you see in CBX is a household, and as I said, they categorize them in this group. They said, in this area that you've asked about, I think with Stafford, the group is primarily soccer moms, and then it gives you descriptions of what they are. The reason I spend a good portion of this class just going over personas is because you've got to understand who the consumer is before all the tools work. So, and it changes. I found almost every agent in our area that I have talked to thinks that the average consumer is 50 years old buying their 14th house. It's just not the case. So here's a journey that the client goes through. So the buyer, their first section is research. And this is about 13 months before they are ready to actually buy. And this is the majority, and this is a critical component of this class. The majority of your leads are going to come from people who are in this very first segment of the pre-research. They haven't settled on an agent. They haven't talked to somebody. They haven't talked to a loan officer yet. They are in this nebulous place where they're just dreaming. I call it the dream phase, where they're going to go look on Zillow and search for homes. Zillow has way more traffic, 4 times more traffic than Realtor.com. And then after Realtor.com, everybody's a far distance from them. So the Zillow buyer is your primary group. And what that means to you is that your profiles have to be set up there. You have to be responsive. You have to know that that person is a real person. It is not just an email. It is not just a lead. It's a real person who's looking to see what they can do, what they can afford, what's available out there, where do they have to plan, what do they need to research. And that starts about 13 months out. That should be the biggest aha moment of you in this segment of the class, is that when that person reaches out to me, they are not a 30-day buyer. They're probably not prepared. They probably haven't talked to Heather over at Movement or any of your other loan officers. They are in the early on sessions of this search. And so when I'm working with that particular person and I get that email, I don't blow them off going, you know what, they've got 13 months, because I don't know their net search, just guessing based on their email. And that means I need to have a 21-month or a 13-month program, depending on the totality of their search parameters, to be able to engage them and work with them over time, give them something notable, making phone calls and emails. We'll talk about that in a minute. The next phase, which lasts about 2.7 months, is the active research. This is when they're actually saving on our watch list specific listings, when they're trying to do comparison shopping. And do I want to live in Stafford or pay a little less on a mortgage so I can move to Spotsylvania? Or do I want to go to Gainesville and say, yeah, I'm going to pay a lot more for a house, but at least I don't have to sit in traffic for 2.5 hours. That means I have to have this kind of job and make these cuts and this kind of budget. And they're getting very, very serious at this point as the buyer. The phase 3 is the buying process. This is when I've talked to a loan officer, I've done the research, I'm ready to go. I'm still in that active research where I'm still saving homes. I might be talking to agents. A big thing to remember is that we went from 5 years ago, the consumer usually talked and worked with the first agent that they met and they talked to. Now, they're going to talk to up to 3 before they make a decision, and we'll usually actively interview 2, right? And that means sitting down with you, talking through whatever. And if your gut reaction is, oh my gosh, it's a buyer, let's just go meet them at the house and show you the house, they're going to dismiss you because you didn't convert them. You didn't build loyalty. You didn't engage them and their family and convince them that you were looking for anything other than, let's go look at a house, turn a key, and I don't know anything about the house, walk through. If you like it, I can write it up as an offer. The baby boomer generation was far more trusting of licensees. And a lot of them dismissed us because at the time, that generation had a lot less respect for real estate agents. Gen X and Gen Y have got a little bit more respect for it because they appreciate entrepreneurs more. And they also haven't had a bunch of negative experiences like their mom and dad and the baby boomers did. But they also are looking for connection. And there's a big difference right here in that when they're in this active phase and they see an email come from you and it says top producer and da 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 and multi-million-dollar producer, you may be very impressed with yourself with that. But a Gen X and Gen Y, who, as we saw in the numbers, is our target buyer seller group right now, they don't. They see that and they go, wow, that person is so successful. They are way too busy for me. They are not going to care for me, my family. They're not going to listen to me. They're going to meet me at a house and push me to write an offer. The world has changed from a very, very long time. We've been a formal industry for 114 years. The past 30 years has been very similar consumers, very cookie cutter-ish kind of agents who did flyers, brochures, sent out mailers, and they saw us do the same thing over and again. For the past 5 to 10 years, we've seen agents doing those things because their predecessors did, but not really thinking through, is that the best use of my money, time, and effort? And they've just looked like everybody else for the past 30 years. So today's 37-year-old consumer, which we have two different independent reports who say our average consumer in Fredericksburg in our region is about 37, is very different in this. They're more meticulous. They're looking for someone who's going to give them more time. They're going to research the hell out of everything and expect you to know the information they found online already. The last phase for the buyer is phase 3, which is about 5 months. Again, active searching, talking to realtor. So this phase, this series, for depending on the buyer, can be 13 to 21 months of dreaming, thinking, researching, and engaging. Now, the second half of the slide you see is a seller. Sellers usually start thinking about selling 16 months out. They spend about 6.6 months looking at comps, checking out online the value of their home. This is where they get their Zillow reports and all the rest. Um, uh, and really doing the busy work of getting themselves prepared, fixing up their home, and in 4 months I've talked to and interviewed agents, I've got the house ready, and it's on the market, and in about 3 months, and it sells. So they're about a 27-month process, and they still do the pre-research, the active research, and the selling stage along the road. All right. So the question, do you think Gen X and Gen Y only want to work with agents that are Gen X and Gen Y, one of their own, or will they work with baby boomer agents? They will absolutely work with baby boomer agents. And look, I've got all 3 generations on this call. So all of you are going to be equally offended at some point in the reality of this. Gen X, Gen Y often will not trust people if they're in the exact same boat. So in other words, if I'm 27 years old and I'm buying my house, I don't know that I want to work with an agent who I think is like me too much, because we all think we're special. But Gen X and Gen Y still want someone with a little bit of experience, so they'll go look. And some of you have experienced this. You become mom and dad for this transaction, right? Now you're also dealing with Gen X and Gen Y's mom and dad. But they still do want to work with baby boomer agents. We have the statistics and the feedback we've had from consumer and consumer panels is that age, especially for Gen X and Gen Y, has not been significantly a factor. It's your acclimation to tools and resources and engagement. So if you're meeting them where they are on their platform, they're perfectly happy to work with someone who's experienced, who's going to treat them well. Especially if you come in and say, I've been where you are. So if they've got kids and you said, yeah, I remember my kids are that age, that may be a good way to resonate with them. So good question. Okay, so Melissa, I'm going to answer that question later when we have time. I do think there's a surge of it. I don't know that it's highly effective, but I think it's where people are going where they haven't gone before. So we'll get back to that. Okay, so what happens after they click? So here's the question, and I'm going to do this real quick. How many of you, I'm going to go back to my little attendees list and clear off the hands. Click the hand icon if you feel like you are able to respond and engage a consumer within 15 minutes of them clicking for information. Okay, good, honest group. How many of you, when you make an inquiry online, when you go to a website and ask a question, expect to get an answer in 15 minutes to a half hour? How many are you frustrated when you have to pick up the phone and call for tech support as opposed to being able to chat with them live at any given time? Yeah. So here's the deal. That consumer is thinking the same thing. They're thinking that when they make an inquiry, somebody should respond, and never, ever, ever should it be longer than a day, but it should be very quickly. So the consumer's sitting here, she's looking up online at houses. We know this is what they do. All right, can't hear, can't hear. Now it's back. All right. Yeah, sorry, just stick with me. It's going to come and go. Um, Benita, it's going to come and go. It's the flow of internet. Nothing I can do about it. Okay, so what happens after they click? They click the button and go, oh, I want more information about this house because they're actively interested. And here's something else you should know about this consumer. For those of us who've been around for a while, they would send us a list of 14 houses. Again, anybody who's been doing this for a while will raise their hand and remember getting those emails at 9:30 at night. You've got an 8 o'clock meeting. You already had 10 houses with the buyer wanting to see an ad. Can we just fit 4 more in? And you're thinking there's no freaking way in the world I can make 14 houses in the 5 hours I have with them or 4 hours I have with them on a Saturday. Um, they don't do that anymore. Some of them do, but most of them have said they've been sitting in front of that computer for 13 months. They have disassociated anything that has crappy photos, bad description, and no video. They have simply done away with it. They are looking, when they click the house, we know 74% of them have probably driven through the neighborhood according to NAR numbers. This means when they send an inquiry, they are legitimately interested in that property and it may be a valid option because they researched the hell of it online. It used to be all they had was a little bit of information, realtor.com, and you had to be the Uber driver and drive them all over the region looking at homes. This means it's a much better lead for an online lead than someone who's just randomly trying to get you to go show houses or trusting you to do it. We have to remember that the human attention span is 8 seconds, 1 second less than a goldfish. So when they have looked at those properties, they are zipping through and scrolling down. If you're the listing agent, you better put a really good photo on that listing because you're only getting the first photo is the only thing they're going to look at and be interested in. They're scrolling through pictures and they're looking at price and pictures. And if it doesn't look like a house that may fit their model, they've moved on to the next one and won't even make an inquiry on it. Video becomes critically important to this generation of consumers, which again represent about 62% of all the buyers out there. Video becomes a very, very big deal. Not only listing videos, but videos about you as an agent. When they go to your website, they're looking for something to engage quickly. And if you've looked at the current model of marketing companies and websites, you'll see almost all of them that are selling a product have a video, regardless of how simple the product is online, on their homepage, because that's what they know the consumers are looking for. I've lost my mouse here. All right, I'm trying to make sure I get to all your questions. If someone is looking at homes at 1 a.m. and make inquiries, do they expect a call back at that time or in the morning? No, and that's a good point. I was going to get to it later, but we can talk about now. Most inquiries are coming in or most searches are being done 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. And from the consumer models we've seen through NAR, CRS, and some of the rest, what we're seeing is that inquiries need to be answered no later than 10 a.m. or the buyer will make another inquiry on the same topic and it will go to somebody else in most of the platforms. Your clients are going to regard responsiveness as a sign of quality. So again, in the baby boomer generation, we had a little easier in 10 years ago where the consumer was looking for the agent as the gatekeeper, right? Before Zillow, before instant access to video and everything else, the consumer knew they had to wait. They had to wait for you to get around to answering them, to doing your other business, and you were the only way to get in the door. They figured out that there are, in Fredericksburg alone, 1,500 realtors, 20,000 realtors in Northern Virginia. They will find someone to answer and be more responsive and get them in that door if you're not going to answer. And they don't care as much as the previous generation about whether or not you're the listing agent. It used to be if you're the listing agent, they trusted you more, thought they're going to get a better deal. Gen X, Gen Y, for the most part, has moved away from that and is far more interested, unless they're investors or they think they're savvy or they took some Dave Ramsey seminar 5 years ago. They're far more likely to want to work with somebody who represents them in their own interest, period. Although they're well researched, what their research has shown them is that responsive agents who engage them on the tools that they're using, i.e. internet, text, things, are probably more likely to represent their family better than someone who has dual interests. Do you think an agent video should basically follow the agent's bio? Actually, no. I think you have to be. I mean, I use some key phrases out of my bio in my videos, and you can see that if you go to my webpage, you can see both my um, bio video as well as my. Okay, for some reason I cannot send a message. Oh, because I'm in the wrong screen. Sorry. If you go there, you'll see that there's a couple key phrases on my bio. My bio is a lot longer than most people would think is good because I want Google to index it. And the video is much shorter, but for the most part, it's just a quick story because you want it under a minute. Remember that 8-second thing? It's got to be a different topic every 8 seconds, and your video should be less than a minute. But no, I don't think it should be exactly the same as your bio. I think you should talk to the consumer as if it's an initial interview, your elevator speech. Remember, 7% communication is 7% of the actual word you use, whereas 38% is your tone of voice and 55% is your body language, which is why you have to look at my ugly face on video when I do these, because I want you to be somewhat more engaged than if you're just looking at a slide and just hearing a few words. Same thing with consumers. Remember, when I type that email, I think all of us can raise our hand here. We have either unintentionally offended someone or been offended when it wasn't the intent because of a text or an email. Whereas listening to someone and hearing their tone of voice changes or softens those words, and certainly seeing that person and seeing sincerity and engagement is going to change things. So getting in front of them and meeting with them is the goal of every online lead or conversion. And I can't stress that enough. That email is the opportunity for you to meet with them belly to belly. That's what you need to do. You are 104 times more likely to convert an online lead when you call within 5 minutes instead of 30. So the distance between 5 and 30 minutes is big. If the lead gives you a phone number, call them. And I hate the phone like everybody else does. It's the bane of my existence. When it rings, I always know it's somebody who doesn't know me, because otherwise I would have texted or email. But if it's someone who knows me, most of them know me well enough to say, more than likely, if I call him, he's going to see my number and realize it's probably much more important, um, much more important than if I just text him. And for most cases, that's the truth. Or I pick up the phone and you're just in your car and you didn't want to text, which is great. Okay, so 104 times more likely if you answer in 5 minutes. And we're going to talk about some things before you stress out about that to help you appear to be responding in a quick way. All right, let me go back here and make sure I'm hitting all the questions in the chats. Okay, looks like I'm doing okay. 66% of consumers go with the first agent they interview. This is not meet. This is not talk to like it used to be. It's the first one that they actually interview. But that 66% is down from 91% just 6 years ago. 6 years ago, if you got to sit in front of them and do a presentation for buyers or sellers, you were in, because you were it and they canceled other appointments and just went with you. Primarily because the consumer did not know the difference between one agent or another. Well, now we're down to 66%, but it's still the interview, not talk to, not emailed. You emailing a client and texting them is not an interview. It is not considered full engagement because there's 7 or 8, on average, 7 or 8 other agents sending in emails and texts. You've got to get in front of them. You've got to spend time with them, and you cannot just simply run out and show the first house that they asked you to look at. That is not how you win over a client today. The average response time to a lead is 3 hours, 8 minutes. 2 slides ago, I told you 5 minutes gives you 104 times more likelihood of converting. 3 hours and 8 minutes, and this drives me nuts. And again, some of you, you will be offended by the end of this course, by this lecture. When you say, those online leads, they're just crap, I hate them, it's just a bunch of BS. It's because you spent 4-8 hours before you got around to them because you were sitting down at night to answer emails and you just quickly sent them a link, go, oh, here's some information, let me know when you'd like to look at it. You didn't do the hard work of putting them into some type of conversion program and having a structured plan. And look, for some of you, I'm looking through this list, you've had some pretty good success in the business, and that's awesome. I'm going to tell you, and I've made this statement years ago, and a bunch of people gave me a hard time, and I was actually just sharing that story earlier when I said, if you do not begin to encounter the consumer where they are today, you won't be here in the future. You've got to change how you do things. And a bunch of agents and brokers got really pissed off and wrote some letters to me in the school that I worked for at the time because I made that statement, and they felt that I was saying they were antiquated. And then it wasn't 5-6 years later, everyone who wrote those letters was out of the business or were doing far less business than they used to. As a coach or as a trainer, I can't tell you, or actually I can, almost every single class that I've ever taught, someone has come up and said, I'm here because I'm losing business to younger agents. It is not younger agents. It is agents who have elected to adapt to the different world, those who have chosen the right tools, the right resources, and to invest themselves in education. Age has nothing to do with it. It is your interest in being educated on how to respond quickly, how to respond effectively, and to take the time with the consumer. And now know we are not the gatekeepers anymore. They don't necessarily need us for the keys in the house or to get home information or any information. They're getting crappy information, but they're getting it from the Google. So you want to make sure that you are responsive with good, solid information, and that your effort is to say that persona we talked about 20 minutes ago, I am responding to Julia and Jane. I keep changing her name because I made them up, but you get my picture. Julia and James, that's who I'm talking to. They've got 2 kids. They're scared to death because they're going to be buying a house that they really can't afford, but they need. They don't know the area, or they don't want to work with that person at church that they've met who's a realtor. They've gotten bad information. They're scared, and they just want you to help guide through the process. Response time is critical, but it's meaningful response time. 6 is the optimal number of calls for client conversion. Again, so many of the agents I encounter, online leads are crap. I sent them an email, they never respond, and I moved on. I'm too busy. Part of your day, 30% of your, we know this from, again, models have been made of top producing agents say that 30% of their day is spent engaging in marketing. That's how you build a business. You are your chief financial officer, your chief executive, your chief marketing specialist, and your secretary for most of you. You are all those different hats. You're a marketing officer. When you look in the mirror in the morning, you're looking at your marketing officer, and if they're not getting the job done, you need to reassess how you have structured your company of you. 6 is the optimal number of calls for client conversion, and it needs to be in a reasonable time frame. So you get an email inquiry and they gave you a phone number, that is strong. People do not give up phone numbers unless they intend to get calls. You need to keep calling and keep emailing until they convert a client, because if you only do one and done, that's it, they're moving on. 80% of consumers said they never heard from an agent more than once. I don't care if it was in 2003 or in 2017, I routinely hear from you as agents and from clients. From you as agents, it comes out as, you know what? They went with me because they said I was the only one to return their call. When we know that the average consumer makes 3 inquiries every 45 minutes of an online search, that's sad that you were the first one to return their call in a 13-month period. Same thing with consumers. They're like, you get them on the phone now. I just had one last night call. It's a past client. And he said, can you help my daughter out? She's been calling agents all around town and nobody will get back to her. And she hasn't even said how much she can afford or what she is. She's just calling and saying, I'm looking for houses. Can you give me a call back? And no one's calling her back. So we know vast majority of consumers are getting frustrated that no one's returning their call email, because majority of agents have dismissed them either because they don't know how to convert or they just think it's too much work and they've moved on. So there are some times and dates that are particularly valuable for you in returning phone calls and emails. We know that from 9 a.m. until 10 a.m. and from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. are the prime dates for following up with people who you have left prior messages with. This is part of the conversion process over time. Of course, we respond as quickly as possible to any leads that we get. Excuse me. But we know that 10 a.m., 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. are when people are recognizing and taking your phone calls about their inquiries and your follow-up. So those are the times and dates you should be spending Wednesdays and Thursdays. A majority of your time trying to get back to that person who's been elusive, who made an inquiry a month ago. You've sent emails, you've sent texts, you've gotten little to no response. You should pick up the phone between 9 a.m. and 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. and 6 p.m. Wednesdays and Thursdays and schedule your time to respond to them. All right. So section 2 is the groundwork. Section 1 was about the consumer. How do we engage? What's the best times? Section 2, remember, you're simply an email until they connect with you as a person. So when you respond, your response, we as agents have this really, really weird concept about ourselves. So most of us took the real estate class, going in there, had a sphere of influence of maybe a few people. You always hear from agents, some of my friends used to ask me about real estate questions, or I love going with my friends to look at houses. But for the most part, most of us before pre-licensing, had a very small part of some job or company or group. Most of us were not the center of knowledge for all of real estate before we got in. And so a consumer doesn't really know what you know or who you are or how valuable your services are until you explain and tell them that information. So you are simply going to be an email until you meet with them as a person. They make that inquiry at 11 o'clock at night, and at 7:30 in the morning, you respond back to them with, "Hey, thanks so much for asking. This house is great. I've seen it before, or it's my listing, or whatever it is. When would you like to look at it?" And you send that off. They think you're a machine. They don't know you have value. They don't know what you're looking for. They don't know how you're going to help in the transaction. They think you have a key, and there's a house they want to see, but you're one of four people who've just responded with the same thing. And it'll be whoever they get to, they get to. Responding with, you know what, hey, that is a good house. Wow, you know, that looks like a great location. Or this is a great listing. We've had a little bit of interest in it. But tell me about why you think this is good for your family. What can I do to help see if that's maybe not the only house for you? You know, what's important to you in this house? What made you connect with this home and ask about it so that I can make sure that I get all the information you need? You start asking about them, even by email, it starts to open up the door that you want more. Now, if you send them a email and say, here's 10 questions for you to fill out. Are you qualified? Do you breathe? Are you easy to work with? They're going to dismiss that. But a nice conversational tone and a quick response is a great way to converting them. And understanding, again, they are not going to be necessarily buying in 30 days. It could be a year or a year and a half. But you are supposed to be putting people in that pipeline for the year and a half until they're ready, because you want to have continued future business. There's a little bit of a transition that we're going through, or we're almost at the delta of an industry change. The industry used to be you spent a majority of your marketing time reaching out to past clients in your sphere. You still need to do that, a lot of that, but you also have to be looking about who am I putting in the pipeline and in the funnel that can be my future clients as well. So you're right in the middle of where you need to be working with the old and new clients. You need to make sure you're not a robot. Now, I get teased all the time for being a robot and stuff. We're not talking about that. We're not talking about, you know, being able to do a lot of work and multitask. We're talking about being able to respond to somebody in a human way. Now, look, for some of you, I'm kind of laughing. Some of you are so robotic that you just copy and paste an answer and send it back, or you send a link, or you just got it down pat because you're trying to get done and dismiss and go on to the next thing. If they don't see you as a real person, if they don't see, and again, if you go to my webpage and read the bio, and if you read or watch the video, there's very little about my past production or my resume. There's links to that if they're interested, but it's really more of why your family is important and what my past clients have said. And this is why your reviews and your real satisfied surveys are such a huge and integral part of what should be part of your first connection. They need to see that other people like them have enjoyed working with you and that you can get the job done. And you have to make sure that if you sound like you're a scripted auto response, that's all they're going to see of it, and you have no value, and they will move on to the next person who actually picks up the phone and engages them. You need to have, and I said this in the very first slide, today's consumer engagement in building your business is work. It requires you to do something other than just talk to the first person who asks about your name badge in line at the grocery store. And let's be real, people who work at Hex and Walmart and Chick-fil-A wear name badges. And so consumers see a name badge, they're no longer associating that with a professional. That's really, it may open up and introduce you to something, but if you don't have a good elevator speech, your chance of conversion because they just asked about it is not very, very good. And we know that they're still going to go home and still do the searches and still do the other stuff for the most part. So um, the days of the name badge and the car magnets and stuff that may have gotten you a client here or there, that is not going to be where majority of them come from. And you're going to have some way to manage those people who are not right now buyers, who are spontaneously asking about your name on the side of your car. So the CRMs are good databases to keep track of your clients. If you don't have one, and in this class, I don't go through the top 5 best CRMs. We will do those type of sessions. You all already have access to one through the Zap system that you have through CB Exchange, where you can put clients in. You have other systems as part of Coldwell Banker Elite where you can also manage your clients and put them into programs to make sure they're getting connected with. And CRM should be a way in which to suggest to you when to pick up the phone and call, when to email them, when to text, when to send them a gift, when to call about anniversaries and birthdays. You should build your own content in the CRM. And where I see a lot of people get frustrated with, I spend $30 a month and on the system and it never converts clients. Well, that's because you and I are accustomed to getting chain letters and junk mail and things that are truly and clearly scripted out by somebody who has no idea who I am as a person, and they're totally generic. You should go into Zap. Remember, I told you it's going to be a little bit of work. You should go into Zap and create your own 27-month email program and figure out, write it down. It's different for every one of us. I can't do this for you. You need to write down on a blank piece of paper and put every month, January through February, or months 1 through 12, right? Don't do January through February because they could go in at any given time. Month 1 through 12. And every time that you get a lead, you put them in the database. But and when you sit down with a piece of paper, you need to think about, when I put them in the database, what are they getting? It needs to be hyper-local content. It needs to be stuff, if you're in Gainesville, that's Northern Virginia related. If you're in Stafford, Spotsylvania, Fredericksburg, it can be Fredericksburg related. But it needs to have stuff like lifestyle information. 10 things you need to know about moving forward and buying your home is great once in a while. But how to find a good daycare center. What are the schools like? How do I find about the football schedule for the local high school? And script out over a 12-month cycle, and actually you should probably do 24 months, a 24-month cycle, what email should be going out that's real estate related, that's lifestyle related? When should I make a phone call? When should I text them? And this system should be able to prompt you to do those things, and this one will send out the email. So Zap already has this. You can edit your own library of scripts, and you can make them for buyers, sellers, whomever. We can guide you through that. We can give you suggestions. But whatever CRM you're using, I'm going to Zap because you already have it as part of your being a Coldwell Banker agent. Whatever system you're using, you should make yours, your voice, your tone, your content. And honest to goodness, within 2 to 3 days, you can create a pretty meaningful content library and a plan for these folks. And then it lasts you for a couple years. So you put 2 days invested into a long-term conversion program, and it's going to keep bringing you benefits. You just have to follow it. You have to make those phone calls. You have to make the text, emails, and even the stop bys if they're good, solid clients. Your website needs to be a resource. So when I go to a website, and again, I'll share the one that I've set up for Angel and I as the team. And I just put that down in the chat section, a link to it, vahomeplace.com. We only deal with sellers. So you don't see a lot of information about searching for homes or buyers because that's not our target. We deal with sellers. But this page is actually set up for you guys to see as a template for what we think should be on a website for clients. So we don't actively promote this website. We just use it now and again. But when you get there, you'll see who we are, getting information about us, how do you contact us, how do you follow us in social stuff, blog posts we've made about the region, past client information, and then home seller information. What is a smart home and how does it work and how do you market it? How is marketing done? How do I know how much my home is worth? All those things are on the web page. And to find your home value is actually part of the Cloud CMA kit that you all have, where you can use that as a lead generation source. And again, we'll do other classes on how to do that in the future. And some of you have just recently went through some of Arlene's awesome classes and Angel's awesome sessions with that. So your website should be a resource. It is so many of us as agents will ask the wrong questions about so many things. But in this case, the wrong question is, how do I get my website found in a Google search? And the answer is, sadly, you no longer can do that. Okay, back when I started, and for probably a good 6 years or so, if you did any searches in Caroline County, where I was living for a while, or Fredericksburg, where I was living for a while, I usually came up pretty well. But then I realized Zillow, Realtor, Trulia, Homes, all those people are spending millions of dollars collectively getting in front of Google, and other people are doing pay-per-click, and the companies are hard to compete with. And so I said, okay, this is why blogging was such a great thing, because it was for local content. If you do a search for new businesses in the area or interviews on a restaurant, and that comes up to your webpage, they look at that because it's lifestyle related, and then they lead into the other things. And that's great, but winning the Google game isn't where you should be focused anymore. Your website isn't to generate leads. Your website is to cultivate leads. So do you see my hand doing this? I just don't know what this weird thing is. I just did it with my hands, but you, you're going to, you want to use this to say, hey, I'd like you to go look at my webpage, and there's more information and videos and content about the selling process or the buying process. And this will be your go-to place when you have questions. And this should be somewhere that if you're connecting with leads, you should say, here, go to my website, and I will go to my website and I will answer some of those questions, or go here to search for more information, or here's a list of vendors in the area who can work on houses, or whatever it is. That's what your page should be. So, so as I said, your website is not for lead generation; it's for lead cultivation. And Connor's response is, "But I pay $50 a month for a gym membership. Why aren't I ripped?" Oh my goodness! All right. Yeah, I don't know what this weird thing is with my hands. Okay. Also on your website, and this is something you should have. Can't stress this enough. I want to just shake some of you. Again, the angry hands in the webinar. Avatars and biographies. I'm not going to spend a tremendous amount of time breaking this down. There is another session. I think it's already recorded. I think we can send it out. We talk about biographies and how they're written and how critically important good grammar and storytelling and engagement are. So many of you, if I put my thumb over your name and I read your bio, you look like every other flipping realtor out there. And the consumer has that impression and goes, I don't know why bother I read any of this. You've got to speak in the first person. Okay. You're not an NFL person. You're not a rock star. No one out there thinks that you hired somebody or they followed you around and wrote your life story in the third person. Speak in the first person because they know that you wrote it. Talk to them about what they're going to gain by working with you and all those things. But the self-aggrandizing and I was a military spouse, so I get you. Everybody was a military spouse or military family or whatever. The consumer, if they're military, may engage that, and it should be a small part of your bio. And it is something that some people will see as important. For the most part, they want to know how you're going to treat them and their family. Are you going to get them? Are you going to understand them? How is that going to work? And for some of you, and again, I told you there's going to be some stuff that may hurt your feelings, but I'm here to help you, and I can't do that without telling you the truth. Some of you have phoned in that bio, and it's the most minimum thing you could have possibly written down. And I hear all the time from people who say, you know what, I'm just not a writer, or I don't really see the value of this, or then that's how it's going to come across to people, right? They want to get to know you. That also is something that's Google search index through the Google. It's really, really important. And you do it once, you do it well, you save it in a Word document so you can type it in the next time, or copy and paste it in when you have bios. And we all have countless web pages asking for bios and content. So make sure it matters. Avatars, your pictures need to be contemporary and look like you, and they cannot be headshots from 1995. They can't be your high school photo. Some of you are getting very creative with these weird mists that are coming in as you're standing in your living room. There's my favorite are the pictures where you were clearly holding on to a friend and hanging out like a boyfriend or a girlfriend, and now you're not. You've cut it down the middle and you just got your headshot in this weird look like you're, I don't know. That may work for Tinder, doesn't work for clients. Okay. Next one is video intros. The video, you have an iPhone, you have an Android, you've got all the video gear you need for a good engagement. And again, sit there under a minute, say hi. I really look forward to meeting with you. You can do a whole series of them, one for buyers, one from sellers, and that may be your send ahead. Because remember the slide I had earlier that talked about body language and words and all that. Yeah, Michelle Harless says no glamour shots. Yeah, if you have a boa and a hat and it's all frosted over, yeah, people think you're crazy. Video intros are a great way to send forward. You answer that inquiry. The person emailed you, what about this house down on Main Street? And you go, you know what, it's a great house. I'd love to show that to you. I really think we should meet and talk about what your goals are so I can help simplify this process and help you reach those goals and get to know you about you and your family. And if you'd like to know more about me, here's a link to my website that has my bio and my video. And that goes to every inquiry so they can go back and see you on video and see how you engage and see that you're a real person And for most of us, we look better on video than we do when we're written down. So somebody who's reading your bio, someone who sees a video more active. Hi, my name is Matthew Rathman. I'm a real estate broker with Cole Baker Lead in Fredericksburg, Virginia. And I've lived in Fredericksburg, Virginia all my life. I'm here with my wife, who I've been married to for over 20 years, my children, who we've homeschooled from kindergarten all the way up until college, and a church that we've been to for, again, over 20 years. It's been our story. It's been where we've lived, and it's been who we are. See, I know that you as a client also have a story, and that story has certain episodes or certain instances that were monumental. And oftentimes those large purchases or selling a house or buying a house are part of the story that you remember. See, I'm a supporting character in that story. And even supporting characters sometimes have a legacy or an influence in the story of one's life. I've worked with clients like you who have been excited to move into their forever home or even their first home. I've been with clients like you who may be downsizing, either because of change in the family or just financially it's a better option for you. Or you're relocating because your job has dictated it or the military has instructed you to do so. See, all of those stories are something that I like to get to know so that I can better work with you and understand what your end goal is. I start with those clients that I've worked with for a long time. In my long career, over a decade, I have worked with people who have worked with me and then referred me to their children and their children's children. Few agents can say that 3 generations have worked with them in more than one instance, because families often only recommend people who have been a positive influence in their story or who they've had good experiences with. And I will aim to be that person. It starts off with a meeting between you and I. We decide what your goals are and whether or not we're a good team, whether we can collaborate effectively to reach those goals. And if not, that's okay, but most of the time, I find that I am. Using very current technology, tools, resources, and extensive education in real estate, I'm more than happy to help guide you through the process, not making decisions for you, not pushing you into something too quickly, but honestly and earnestly looking out for your best needs. So if you have any questions or if you'd like to find out more, please visit my website at matthewrathman.com. You'll find information about bio, some testimonials, and some other elements there that may help you make a decision on whether or not we're a good fit to sit down and chat. If we are, I look forward to meeting with you. And thank you so much for watching this video. Okay, so mine is Already Breaks the Rule. I told you it's a little longer. It's about 2 minutes, a little over 2 minutes. But I'm doing 2 parts there, the introduction and then the invite or the call to action to reach out to me. And hopefully some of that's resonated. And to Rich's question earlier, there are 3 or 4 points that came out of my bio that I think are important to me. And this is very well practiced and I analyze everything. So when I meet with clients, it is never about me. It's always about them. And I'll tell them that in the email before we meet. And I'll send it out to them and say, before we meet, here's what to expect in our meeting. Here's a link about me because this meeting's for you and not me. And I'll listen to them and they will recall things or ask questions about stuff they heard in the video or the written bio. And then I will tweak and focus on the things that I've routinely heard from clients that they pulled out. So for example, the comment about working with 3 generations of families, I've actually had 2 or 3 instances of that where I help grandma and grandpa, they recommend me to their kids and that those people recommend me to their children. That is a home run. So I focus on that in both the bio and the video bio. This is Angel and our downtown video, and the quality of video may not come through very well from the computer to the mic. So hopefully you can hear it okay. If not, you can find them online.
Hi there, I'm Angel Piontek, Realtor and Director of Business Development with Cole Baker Lead. I've called Fredericksburg home for over a decade, and I'm here right now in historic downtown, my absolute favorite place to hang out. It's a great combination of rich history with a small town, charming feel to it, and a growing cultural and arts scene. There's also some amazing restaurants for you to try here. Just a few minutes away, there's a great walking and biking trail that has views of the Rappahannock. My husband and I have 2 girls, and it's an ideal place to raise a family. But if you're looking for an adventure outside of Fredericksburg, you can drive 60 miles north to Washington, D.C., and visit some museums, or go 2.5 hours east and hit the beach, or a couple hours to the west, and you can be hiking the Blue Ridge Mountains. So if this is a place you'd like to call home, you can give me a call at 540-455-2910 or email me at angel@cpeba.com. Thank you. Have a great day.
Okay, and predictably, Angel hits it right on the head, and she did the whole 1 minute thing. So she got it in exactly the time she was supposed to, whereas I ramble for a lot longer than I should. And that's not a surprise to any of you who know us. Okay, so, and by the way, both of us have gotten leads just from the videos, Angel more than mine. She's actually gotten listing leads and interviews from people who listen to that, but we've seen people who, uh, although they may have connected with us a different way, did respond to the video or see it after the fact. Okay. The next one is online reviews. So the videos we talk about ourselves, our engagement. Actually, we're talking about our clients, but we're talking about our engagement with them and who we are. Online reviews are other people who have talked to us. So we have a lot of our downtown, our new downtown family has extended. Yay! Thank you all for taking the video and being amazing. This has been awesome hanging out with you guys and getting to know you down here. For you, this is new and we haven't covered this yet. I think we do tomorrow, actually. Real Satisfied is an automated feedback system that we already have. You're already getting and sent out to your clients, and we'll talk about that tomorrow for you. For all the rest of you who are here, it's something we do as from staff in the background, and we send you the responses to the reviews. And it's a good way for the consumer to see somebody like them who's worked with you has positive feedback. We're in a review world. If you go to Amazon, if you go to an app store, you should be, if you're not, looking to see what other consumers said before you make the purchase. And again, especially for like app stores, everybody promotes their app and they do a great job marketing, but you got 1 out of 5 stars and you got 72 people going, this sucks, then perhaps you shouldn't plunk down your 99 cents for the app. Amazon, if you go there, and most of us have learned what is crap reviews that maybe the seller put on there versus real good reviews from consumers who are real people, and we start to gauge how we would feel based on how that person is written or spoken. Online reviews are really important to you now. Consumers are learning more and more to trust them. Matter of fact, we know 71% of consumers desire to have reviews before they engage a new service provider of any business. So that's a huge chunk of these folks. So promoting those on your website, having that information available is pretty important. The next one is action items. These are things that you need to do. All right, you got to have a plan. As I said earlier, and let me just again come back here. There's well over 50 of you on this webinar, and we know other people want this information as well. So I imagine more people are going to watch it. And I think all of you are going to come to the same point and going, oh my gosh, this is so much to do. And I'm fearful for my business. You've got time. Do it in little chunks, but do it. Write down what needs to be done, what you took away from this class and any other classes or training or services that you read about or do. Have some way to track it. I prefer Evernote or some other type of online to-do thing. But you got to have a plan to get it done. And you got to hold yourself accountable to it, or you need to find me or your managing broker or Arlene or Angel or somebody who will sit down and hold you accountable to make sure it gets done. And it starts with a plan. Remember, you're your own business. You're an entrepreneur. You're going to be your own chief executive officer, business consultant, all those things. And you need to have some type of business plan to get this done. You need to have a plan when that lead comes in. And you need to know that, yes, this is a lot of work. And yes, some of it may be foreign territory if you've never done this. But this is what guarantees your longevity in the business. Being social, having those great wine and cheese or whatever the association calls it, sip and paint, I don't know, whatever those nonsensical things are, that is a very small part of what you do. And you may be content at $1.5 million because of the leads coming from your church of 300. $1.5 million in sales or $2 million in sales is nowhere near touching what you are capable of doing in the lifestyle you could have in this business if you apply yourself and treat it like a business and work your plan. So figure out, what content do I need on my website? Why would somebody stay there? Why would somebody bookmark it? How often do I need to reach out to them? What do I need to write about? We do all the training for you, but we can also give you resources to help out with that or sit with you one-on-one. Your incubation plan should be 18 to 24 months, and it should be for buyers or sellers. Now, I know a lot of you are probably, especially some of you who are new on this webinar, are working with tenants. That is not a way to build a business. That is a way to sustain until you can get more business in the industry. Listing should be everything to you. Listing is what builds business. I've never seen a model of a producing agent with longevity in the business that was not based on more and more leads. Much of the lead generation systems in the industry, including most of ours, frankly, are based on inquiries on your own leads. The more leads you have, the more inquiries you generate, the more opportunities you have to build business and teams and increase your income. So 18 to 24 month plan for both listing inquiries and buyer inquiries is very, very important to you. And again, we've got some models. Zap already has some stuff built in. The problem is that no one can create content that matches your personality and your tone except for you. We can coach you. We can tell you. We can't do it for you. You need to do it. So have an 18 to 24 month plan. And then have an immediate action. What do I do when I get this inquiry? First thing is if it's an email inquiry, and we're going to assume most of your online inquiries are emails or text. You're going to email them, then you're going to text them, and then you're going to call them, all in the quickest process possible. If I'm sitting here doing this webinar and I'm here for 90 minutes on this webinar and I get an inquiry, I clearly can't stop, email them, text them, and call them. There are autoresponders we can set up that at least they get an email. And then I check and I budgeted for each hour, 10 minutes of each hour of the day to go and check and see are there any new leads. And if there are, send them an email, send them a text, call them and leave a message. Now, some of you are going, but I'm in the middle of 14 appointments, or I got things. Technology is amazing if you're using it properly. So let's talk about what that looks like. So conversion strategies for phone, text, and email are a little bit different. Talking to them on the phone means I need to have more time. I need to have time to dedicate to listening. An average phone call with a consumer is between an hour and an hour 15 minutes. If you don't have that time for that inquiry, do not call them directly. Text them and say, when is a good time for you? Put it in their court so you're responsive. Hey, I heard that you had that inquiry. I got your email. Send a quick text. I'd love to talk to you. When's a good time? That's if you don't have the time right now to call. And if they respond and go, now's good, go, you know what? I'm sorry, somebody just walked in. How about tonight at 6 p.m., 7 p.m., whatever time? Have emails that you can send quickly from your phone. I know some of you are looking at me like you're looking at your screen going, that's crazy. Especially if you're driving or something. Save in your signature files or something you can copy and paste, some emails. Hey, especially if it's your listing, you should have one or two saved just for your listing talking about it. But things that you can actually respond to them quickly without putting a lot of thought into it. One of the things that I think that a lot of us get hung up on is the thought of, I've got to find time to sit down and draft this beautifully written email with all the stuff Matthew talked about in engagement. Save them in your signature files or in Evernote or some system on your computer or your mobile device that you can copy and paste, because you're sending the same darn responses by email or text over and over and over again. And this is a little bit of an event. Well, we'll talk about that in a minute. Save those responses because you're sending the same ones over and over again, and put them off to, hey, when's a good time for us to talk? I want to schedule time with you and make sure I have time to dedicate. Those type of responses that you can save, copy, paste, and send out there take you 2 seconds instead of the time to sit down in front of the computer, type it all out, and do what you need to do. No matter what it is, asking questions, whether it be phone, text, or email, is always valuable. It lets you connect with them. And the more questions you can ask even before the meeting, the easier it is to decide before you get in the meeting what it is you need to talk about and how you're going to connect with them, because everybody is a little different. My needs or even how I approach things is probably going to be different than yours. And having a practitioner who's able to adjust to my generation or my left brain versus right brain or one of the 4 personality types is really important. Coldwell Banker has adopted over the years Generation Blue, and Generation Blue is basically, it started off as a process of training you and I as Coldwell Banker agents to be able to handle every consumer that's in front of us, no matter what generation they are, and being able to adjust ourselves and our approach and technique to who they are. So asking questions, pretty important. Why does this house look good to you? What are you really looking for in a home? How can I help you? And then somewhere down the line is, have you already talked to a loan officer about whether you're comfortable or not? Arlene is working on dialogues and scripts for you if you need those types of things. We're working on coaching and training. We do ABR, SRS. We go through the whole list of questions to have. We have some of those on Wolf Connect. If you're looking for those, we already have a list of questions. If not, email any of us on the education group or marketing group, and we'll happily send those to you. You got to look to build trust quickly, and trust means being responsive. That's the very first step for most of them. Be a real person and be a responsive person is probably the 2 foundations for lead generation or for quick lead generation and conversion. And that doesn't mean bragging. Okay, saying I'm a top producing agent doesn't build trust. As a matter of fact, for a lot of consumers, that sends them the other way. The I'm a top producer means you've got a lot of people working for you already, and I really need someone who can focus on me and my family's needs. I want someone who's going to answer the email, answer the phone call, answer the text in a reasonable amount of time. So do what you can to build trust quickly. Have your email templates and signatures. So I'm just going to show you real quick. I wasn't going to do this for time, but I think it's important. Oops. All right. So when I go to my email and I click new email, I have saved under signatures, and all of you have different email systems. So we'll figure it out. If you need help, sit with us on the marketing team or education team will help you out. But I've got online buyer inquiry. So that buyer sends me a lead. I already have a quick email that I can enter and says, thanks for the inquiry. Tied up right now, but I'll get you the information in just a bit. I'd also like to chat with you. Is email or phone better? And if it's a call, what's a good time? While I'm getting the information you're looking for, you can download my mobile app and search homes just like I do. And here's the link to the mobile app. Every one of you at Call Banker has a mobile app, and you have a link that's unique to you. And if you don't know where it is, go to Elite Scoop, go look for mobile apps, and it'll tell you what you have and where it is. Or again, call any of us and we'll help you go through it. But this right now sounds personal. It doesn't sound overly canned, a little bit canned, but not too much. And I can quickly send it off. If it's a buyer, buyer meetings, I'm getting ready to meet with a buyer. I've got an email I can copy and paste from the signatures very quickly that has the response, the confirmation meetings, what to expect, links to things to download, search from homes, go back to my page, who's the loan officer, who are you being represented by. And you can see I can answer those quickly. That means I'm not as, I don't have as much anxiety about the time to sit down and draft all this as I used to, and I can get it done 3 or 4 at a time. If I got 4 leads, you can see how quick that was. Within 10 minutes, I'm done. You can also use Evernote, and with signatures, they reside in the local device. So if I type signatures and save them on my email on my desktop, that's where they are. With Evernote, I can go into buyer. I've saved that here, and now I can simply copy and paste that into an email or even a text because I got the whole library here, and Evernote syncs to all your devices. So if you're not down with that, you haven't been using it for a while, I can send you. We actually I did a video on about 22-minute class on Evernote for real estate agents, and it is in the library on Coach Simple and on some other portals. So anyways, so email templates, signatures, type up stuff so you have these responders ready that you can just send out, that you can copy and paste in text or email. There are apps for phones. SMS Scheduler is one where you can actually plan out like you would in a CRM where you have 24 months worth of content. You can save in your SMS and you can actually schedule them. I will be honest with you, I've only played with that app a little bit and it is okay. It's to me, I don't know. I don't like canned responses. So I've got a few set in there for buyers at different stages of the buying process to text them reminders about certain things, but I'm not using it heavily, but you might. It may be something in your toolkit. I use Evernote more. I've got stuff in there that's canned and I can auto send out. The other tool that I really like, and I think I've talked about this in every class I've ever taught, including ethics, for probably 5-6 years now, is called Slide Dial. And Slide Dial is a really good tool for the phone calls when you don't have time. Remember I told you hearing your voice and responding to a call quickly is a really, really important thing to do. Slide Dial is an app that lets you go directly to the client's voicemail. It doesn't ring their phone, so you don't have to take the chance of them picking up, but you get credit for calling them, right? And it's a follow-up. Remember I said you respond by email, text, and phone, and you can do it all quickly. Slide Dial allows you to go straight to voicemail. It looks like a missed call to them. I wouldn't overuse it. They'll figure it out. There's a free version where you have to listen to ads, or for only $25 a year, you can get the full version with a whole lot of other features, and it will go straight to their voicemail, and you can leave a message. Hey, I got your inquiry. Sorry I missed you on the phone call. That house looks amazing. I'd love to sit down with you about where you are in the buying process and how we can best fit you and your family's needs. Give me a call when it's convenient. You hang up the phone, you send the text, you send the email, because they were all pre-saved. And within 2 minutes, you've hit 3 different ways of reaching out to them. And for those of you who remember, 6 phone calls on average to convert. So that's 1 of 6. Then the next one may be a real call. In other words, we're waiting for them to pick up when we have our time to manage it. And the next one may be a follow-up by voicemail. We try to give you everything you need in this company to succeed. We've done that. I mean, all the tools are there, but there's always something maybe a little bit better. 5 Street, we've never been able to reach any type of reasonable pricing to do it for the whole company. So this would be something you would need to do on your own. But if you are getting a number of leads, and especially if you have a team, this is a awesome resource. I love 5 Street. I think it's $25 for a single agent, $75 a month for a team. And what it does is have your voice, and it has pre-canned stuff that you can edit, but it will automatically respond to email and text and manage all of your leads that come in. Now, Lead Router has a couple features, and Donna can walk you through those if you haven't been with her lately. But this one allows you to replace the email on all your lead sources so that they all go to one place and they automatically respond to your client. So if you're busy, you don't have to worry about it. And then it gives you a history and reminds you and prompts you to do things. I love this system, but again, it's $25 a month for agents, $75 for teams. And you really should consider this if you're getting a number of leads and you feel they're out of control and you need help, or if you have a team where different people are handling different parts and you want to collaborate and make sure everybody on the team's on the same page. As I said, they have not offered a significant enough discounted price to buy for the whole company. And the reality is, paying the amount of money they want for it, for really what's going to be 15% of you or 20% of you using it, it just wasn't a good investment for us. We spent the money on lead generation instead of lead management here. So you should consider this on your own. And again, Zap and the rest will be for company generated leads. This is for everything you do. Right? All of that, all the quick responses, understanding the consumer is, and having the right tools in place really should be the gateway to getting the appointment. Sitting in front of them as quickly as possible, even when they say, we're not really looking to buy for the next 2 years or a year and a half. Do not dismiss the opportunity to get in front of them physically when they say that. All that means is they're in that honeymoon phase that we talked about early on, and you should still at least go do coffee at Starbucks with whoever the decision maker, husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever it is. Get in front of them, sit at the coffee, and chat about, I know you're in I know you have a long-term plan. Let me go through a couple things with you. And for those, Cloud CMA has buyer and seller presentations in there. We have PowerPoint and Keynote buyer and seller presentations to walk you through. And there's some other stuff that I'm working on now, and the team will be working on as soon as we get our head above water to breathe. That will be resources and leave behind you can go through. Here's the buyer process. Here's the lending process. I'd love for you. I know you're really far out and you're just thinking about it now, but there's no reason for you to flounder on your own, and not everything you find online is accurate. I'd love to sit with you. We could spend time now knowing that there's no pressure and knowing that you're a year and a half out. Now's a good time for you to start off right, to have a successful purchase and get the best deal as opposed to later. Then when you physically meet with them, there's contact, there's loyalty building, and then there's follow-up for the next 24 months based on the plan you did earlier. And then you have to reevaluate. Now, this is a big thing for me, and I'll tell you, this turned around my business in the second year that I was in business when I started keeping track of things. So, for example, I have a spreadsheet, and it says Grace Church, which is where I go to church, my web page, my Facebook page, my Twitter page, whatever it is. And whenever a lead comes in, it doesn't matter whether it closes or not, I put a number next to that of what month and what the lead was. And it's a very, very simple spreadsheet. And so I can look 6 months, 1 year and go, you know what, I've been paying X number of dollars a year for this site, or I spend an hour a day on Facebook. And I look at it, and this website isn't generating any leads for me. Facebook is. And the question I have is one of two. One, is the website not converting because I'm not using it properly and I need to evaluate how it's working and tweaks and things and maybe put some new blog posts and fresh content on there? Or two, it just sucks. It's a website, I need to abandon it and go find a better platform. Most of you keep jumping from one website, one tool, or one resource to another, pouring countless dollars into something and dismissing it after a year because it just didn't do anything for me. You have to do something for it in order for it to have a return on investment. So you've got to continuously reevaluate everything. Who are my consumer? Am I keeping the video I did, the website I put together, the flyers I did, even the newspaper ad? Do I understand who the target audience is? Is there a call to action? And am I handling them well when they come back? If you look at the end of the year and you go, I had 27 leads through Facebook last year and only converted 2, Facebook sucks. Nope. I bet you if you had 27 leads, because NAR says the conversion rate is 47%. If you had 27 leads, you should be converting at least 15 of those. And if you're not, somebody else is. The lead source, if they're giving you a lot of leads, it's a good lead source. You have to treat them like people, and you have to work every one of them as if they're a real person until they buy or die or they list with you. Or, get a restraining order. Either one. If they get a restraining order, that's fine. They don't want to work with you anymore. But at least you've done everything you can. And some of you want to be very polite. I don't want to bug them. I don't want to keep emailing them, hammering with phone calls and emails. People like to be pursued. You can say whatever you want. All right, let's see. Do we have voice back yet? All right, testing 1, 2, 3. Let's see if the audio has come back. There we go. Okay. Again, as I was saying, you have to reevaluate what you're doing. You cannot worry. If you're doing it tastefully and you're doing it professionally, do not worry about drowning these people. If you're reaching out once a week for the first couple of months and then a couple times a month, while they're in that dreaming phase and they're a year out and they've told you that, you got to keep working them. You got to keep talking to them. You got to keep emailing them, texting, calling them, checking in until they either get a restraining order against you or they die or they list or buy with somebody else. And if they get a restraining order, then it's pretty clear you can leave them alone and they're really irritated. If they tell you to go away, that's fine, go away. But sending them a handwritten note, sending them a text, sending them an email, making a phone call, if you're not pinging them the same way every time, it's fine until they tell you to stop, do it. And people want to be pursued. And people will go with that salesperson, and that's honestly who we are, until we're consulting with them, until they're our client, we're a salesperson. They're going to go people who pursue them and who show interest in them and who really want to work with them. And you want to be that first person. And we do other classes, or you can go to Google and do the 0 moment of truth and ZMOT and see what the math and science is behind that. But you want to continuously be on the top of mind until they make the decision to buy or get a restraining order. So that's it. That's all I have for today. I hope you took away some good notes. I hope you thought about a plan. And we answered some of your questions for conversions. Again, remember, 47% of online conversions or online leads are real clients who are going to buy or sell within a 13-month period. The question is, are you capable, able, and willing to convert them?